Hello, everybody. I don't know how much of an audience we're going to have here because I feel like our biggest podcast viewers are the ones competing in finals. Not to knock anybody else, but do want to give a quick preview here. If anyone would like to hop on as a guest on the podcast, would appreciate the help. But if not, super down to solo it. A lot of stuff has happened this season, a lot of stuff to talk about. So I think we can make it a pretty interesting one here, even with just the one person. But uh, obviously, big thing we want to talk about here is playoff finals are happening tonight directly after this podcast. We have Andromeda versus Metabusters. We have seen this matchup once before in playoffs, and it was a clean 2-0 from Andromeda. The only time that this result has gone a different way was a bit of a messy series, a lot of mental stuff going on there, and I think Metabusters do have a big challenge to overcome, especially with the format being what it is. Andromeda is going to start with a one-game advantage here because of their completion of the winner's bracket. But Metabusters has played in a competitive series more recently. My sources have been telling me that Andromeda did a practice match over the week, so it's not like they're completely rusty, but obviously they're a bit off the meta, and we are playing on a new patch here, so it's going to be a bit exciting just to see what's going to happen. Meta has shifted up a little bit. We can always dive in and kind of analyze that and see what it's going to mean for each of those teams after this. These standings are not accurate here. They include some extra games that haven't been played, so I am going to go ahead and freeze those at some point. But just to give a look at how teams have been performing, including playoffs here, Andromeda and Metabusters have been very dominant compared to the other teams. They finished regular season a win up on both MVP and Rift Sharks. And the only big difference here is that Metabusters is carrying an extra loss. Both of them have won 9 series over the course of the season. Really fun stuff. And I'm excited to see them square off. Now, I'm not really sure what roster Metabusters is running. I literally have no clue. Andromeda is probably pretty set. We know what to expect from them. I expect it to be Jonah being run in the jungle. That's something we've been seeing more often. But if it is Apari, I think you pretty much have the same thing going for you. You just have a bit of a different jungle pool. Both players are pretty similar. In playstyle, they tend to do really well on champions that can be really aggressive. I think Jonah does have a bit more of that tank option, but it's not like we haven't seen them from Apari, so we could see both. But Gruer is the name to watch in this series, and honestly, he has been for the last couple seasons. He's been insanely dominant, and I really don't think we can talk about this guy enough. I don't want to be like a okay, we're like early. We're early enough in that I'm a little concerned about demonetization if I say anything. But glazing, close enough to what I'm saying. Don't want to be a bit of a glazer for Gruer, but big guy, getting a lot done on the map. He usually draws a lot of bans. Historically, Metabuzzers versus Andromeda, they've been banning out the Syndra and the Echo, from what I remember, and leaving up other things. Lots of good bans versus Andromeda, though. The Bard is always something you need to take away, and Honan has been absolutely cooking on a few picks. That the Jhin pick is a good one for him. Definitely not something you can sleep on in the slightest. But I think Metabusters does have a lot on their plate, but I think if they're able to get themselves going and get momentum, I think it could be really good for them, because I feel like with a team like Andromeda, where you're really solid, you're not used to losing that much. Obviously, they've dropped a couple series, but I don't think any of them were on like their best conditions. I think they're definitely going into this series expecting to win. They went into the season expecting to win. Kind of built a very solid team. Stanley able to grab Gruer, who did the awards sweep in the previous season, got him over to his team, found a few players who really looking to play with them. I think Honan has been pretty undervalued. I think on teams where he's let a little bit loose, it can kind of do whatever he wants. I think it tends to cause some trouble. But Andromeda's definitely kept him locked in, kept him consistent. He's been doing the same thing every series, which is pretty solid. and he's been getting dubs. Jin's been fantastic. The Ashe is a really good pick too, and I think trying to get some mileage against the Andromeda bot lane is where MetaBusters is going to be able to find some success. It's possible they're running Hongbaba. It's possible they're running Stav. We haven't seen much of Stav in playoffs, which is a little troubling to me. I think he's been one of the stronger points of this team. If he's really able to get it going on a lot of his signature picks, he can be really scary. He's stolen Evan's Neela against him and performed really well. The Twitch is something to look out for. His Kais is really solid too. All these champions could theoretically outpace Honen's kind of like slow, safe style. But I don't know. I think we just need to really watch out for Fujer and whoever Fujer is paired up with in the bot lane, because I imagine we're going to be seeing Fujer there. Another player on MetaBusters that I would be shocked if we're not seeing is Tusini in the mid lane. His matchup into Gruer is a bit one-sided. I'm going to see if I can pull up those stats here. I don't think we have rosters in the tool yet, but I can see what we got so far. Yeah, we still have MVP pulled up here, but we just do a little bit of this and then pray that nothing is broken here. Yeah, okay, so we can't look at this key matchup. Tusini versus Gruer has actually gone in Gruer's favor every single time. Here, let me see if I can open this up a new tab. Yeah, so it's a temp file, it doesn't work. But anyway, Tusini's a really solid player. Gruer just seems to have his number. Gruer has played a wide variety of champions here. We have assassins, we have burst mages, we have scaling mages, we have ADCs in the mid lane. And Tusini's also done a bunch of different stuff. He tends to have a bigger champion pool anyway, but he just hasn't been able to find any success versus Gruer. I believe the games that MetaBusters was able to take off Andromeda, there was a role swap going on, which I do think could have contributed to it. A lot of teams have kind of come close to taking series off Andromeda, but MetaBusters with Andromeda on their main roster haven't even taken a game, or at least I'll say main order. I think they've been on their main roster just in a different arrangement, but I think definitely uphill battle, as we've talked about. The top lane is definitely one to look out for. Arnie and Korn, both really fun top laners, both huge Renekton players. Not necessarily by preference. I know that Darius is something that Korn likes a lot, and he will just lean to the Renekton when it's taken off the table. So that definitely could be something to ban away from Andromeda, get the Darius off the table, then try to pry stuff around that. But Korn's definitely been expanding his champion pool. Both these players play Scion too. That's another one that could be pretty interesting. Honestly, we could pull up this matchup as well. It might be more interesting, just because we might have more varied results. But oh, I did that wrong. Oopsies. Anyway, short delay while I try to actually pull up the correct thing here. If I load this, my downloads folder is going to be so full. But yeah, okay. They're actually also 0-5. But as you can see, is a lot of overlap in these champion pools. The Ornn and the Renekton are both top picks for each of them. And I know the Scions in Korn's pool, it's just not showing up. But I think at the beginning of the season, people are like, well, Korn only has these 5 champions in his pool. I think we can kind of play around it. But he's definitely been showing through playoffs that that's not true. And he can play more champions than that. Arnie does have those scary Rumble Jax pocket picks. I think the series could get really excited if he whips one of those out. But if Korn is just more comfortable on his main champions, he could be able to just burn the counters and be able to make it work. So I don't think you necessarily need to go too creative on any of these aspects. But moving on to jungle, MetaBusters has run a few junglers so far here. Noam and Joey are the two that we've seen the most of. Noam tends to play some more off-meta stuff, some more conservative picks, a lot of tanks. Typically, I don't think we tend to see as many bruiser junglers from him. But Joey is the opposite. Historically, he's been a huge Zac player. If you look at the first season he played in all the way back in season 1, it was just all Zac all the time, and he was completely rolling people with it. But now even though Zach's good, he's defaulting to some more aggressive champions like Viego, and he is absolutely cleaning house on it. But if Joey doesn't tend to get ahead, then they tend to struggle a little bit more. But as you look at the bracket here, that doesn't happen too often. So Joey's definitely a really solid pick there, and I think playing around the Viego might be something that definitely needs to be worried about from the side of Andromeda here. But mid lane, I think Tusini just needs to be able to prove that he can get stuff done. And then that bot lane for Metabusters needs to get some work in to overcome the advantage that Andromeda is going to have. Andromeda tends to play some interesting setups around the map. They're very coordinated as a team. Whenever they engage in fights, everyone's there, and I think that macro is the biggest challenge of this team. Even if you're able to secure lane leads, which most of the time you can't, they make it really hard to actually get anything done off of them just because they're always grouping better than you and playing better than you around the map, which just makes it really hard to get anything done. But I think if you're able to just completely steamroll a game, they will struggle if you don't let them get any into those macro situations where they can't have the advantage. Don't want to spend the entire time dwelling on this because other stuff has happened since our last podcast. Do want to shout out the teams that were unfortunately eliminated so far. I think Rift Sharks had a pretty good season. We were definitely a bit flip-floppy, and I think that was ultimately our downfall. Able to find pretty good leads in games, and it kind of felt like no matter what the gold advantage was for either team, at the 20-minute mark, any result for the game could always happen. And I think the most likely outcome against these other top teams was us losing, which did end up being the result we saw. But yeah, unfortunate stuff from us, but I think we will definitely come back next season with a bit more oomph to the team. So be looking forward to it. MVP, they had a pretty strong showing here, but unfortunately did go out 2-0 in their last series. They had a really strong showing from their bot lane, and Julian, as a new player, definitely got a lot done. Super strong player, I believe, got first team all jungle, first team jungle in all scrims. Really solid player, and I expect to see a lot of fighting for those three players I just mentioned. And I do want to shout out PB and Blake, both really solid players. We didn't get to see much of Blake in playoffs. I think he might have been a bit busy, but I mean, he was also the sub, so they didn't really utilize the flex between the two players that much, but you don't necessarily need to. PB has been really, really solid. Did make the swap from support to top lane this season, which I think was pretty unexpected, but he was able to make it work. I think the Karma meta being really strong at the beginning definitely helped him out a little bit. Makes the transition a bit easier if you don't have to learn a new champion. But even on the champs he was playing, I believe some Cassante was involved there. Getting a lot done, a really solid player. And they were able to use a lot of flexes between him and Julian too, which was interesting. But yeah, MVP was a really fun team. They were able to get the win in Frostbite, but they're not going to be able to repeat their performance from last year where they were able to win Frostbite and then move on to win the season, which was a very impressive feat, and definitely not going to minimize them winning Frostbite. That was still super impressive. Good stuff from them. But unfortunately, both of these teams are out. MVP just wasn't able to find success against Metabusters, and they didn't get the chance to play against Andromeda during the playoffs. And Rift Sharks struggled against MVP and Andromeda, even though they were able to take the series off of MVP towards the end of the game, towards the end of the series, which secured a side select, and we just happened to not be able to do much with it. But anyway, really good series. Not all the games are available, unfortunately, due to some spectator issues. But everything we were able to record is up on the YouTube channel, which you can find in the top right of the website. I'll see if I can mouse over it right there. Lights up red, so you know it's YouTube. But yeah, I think that kind of goes over everything we've missed. I do want to take a look at the new patch notes for League, and we can see what's going to change with these two teams specifically. Skarner is still disabled for playoffs, just because we don't want to add any new champions mid-playoffs. We just want to keep the champion pool the same. Looks like Graves got a new change and it got removed, and now he's just getting more attack speed. Graves buff, sure. I don't really know if anyone's a Graves player, so I'm not going to think about it too much. But the Zac nerfs are actually pretty impactful. Andromeda as a team has been wanting to play a lot of Zac, and it does hurt Joey a little bit. Even if he hasn't been playing it as much, I still think it's a valuable champion for him. It gets taken off the board. Zeri nerfs hurt Hongboa, and I don't think really anybody else was looking to play that champion. If I were still in it, I would be, and I would be sad. But I will shut up about that. Bloodmoon skins look pretty sick. Obviously don't affect anything. I expect these system changes to be the biggest thing, so we are going to get into those a bit later. Azir nerfs would hurt Valor, but he's out. And Briar we haven't seen picked in a hot minute, probably since last season. However, we look at the buffs and things get pretty interesting. Silas buffs, I would say, favor Metabusters. Tusini's been playing that way more than Gruer has, and just a lot of other mages in the mid lane have been buffed. Hui is one to look out for. The Galio is a good counter to some of the other buff champions, so I think that could be something to look up if someone is trying to get the Akali, the LeBlanc, the Silas, the Ryze, any of those. You could just pick the buffed Galio into them. These ADC buffs are pretty interesting too, but we can look into more specifics on them just so we have a better read on it. Kali health buffs are definitely going to help her. They actually just explain them, so I'll just read what they say. I was going to say, oh, actually, I just can't read. I thought it said stats. It says state. Whatever. Helps her early game out. Helps her get there. I think both of these mid laners can definitely handle her. Asir is just like nerfed. Not that we're seeing him anyway in the series. If we could see a Draven, that would be sick. I really doubt it's happening. I don't know. I don't think anything here is going to be super impactful. More Jarvan could be really good, though. I know Joey's played a bit of Jarvan. I would not be surprised if Jonah, or honestly, if any of the junglers picked up the Jarvan. Not sure how big of a change this actually is, but you know what it is. Jhin buffs, however, this is a good one to look at because this helps Honan out so much. Just because he's probably looking to pick Jhin anyway, and if the pick gets even better, that is going to be a little ridiculous. Looks like it's giving him additional move speed, and he's losing like 1 base damage and gaining a lot more percentage AD on his Q. Because Riot's funny, I guess. I don't know. Fix the client, please. You have like 44, 144, and you got 69. Like, awesome stuff here, guys. You're truly, truly sick. 44 at base level. Yeah, you cooked. There's more 4s in his descriptions. I don't know if this is balance or if this is like a joke. But anyway, Jin's getting better. Honan's getting better. It's pretty straightforward there. Extra Q damage for AD Kaisa specifically is pretty good. Helps out her on-hit builds, which I think are still situationally pretty good if you're able to hit the front line and not really get contested on it. Don't know if Tusini plays LeBlanc. I feel like I've definitely seen Gruer's LeBlanc before, so this helps him out there. And then the Mordekaiser one. People love to talk about this one. Basically, you just can't escape it, but if you stop it from going off, that works. So it does affect some of his matchups. I think specifically Gangplank and Olaf are going to struggle a lot more into them. Rengar is another one, but we don't really see Rengar top that much. But he is buffed in his Q, and his E deals a little less damage. I think that Q buff early is going to make up for it. So I don't know. Seems like just a pretty good buff for Mordekaiser. I don't see this being an adjustment, but Mordekaiser could be really impactful here if you're able to grab people into the Death Realm. I like him in competitive play in lower levels like we're at a lot because you don't really get outplayed in the top lane like you would in the higher level. But even we do see Mordekaiser at the highest level sometimes, and I think it usually ends up being pretty good. But the ability to just ult the jungler completely removes 50-50s from the game. If you're able to just keep the jungler in there for a while epic monsters are up and secure the smite for your team, that is very good. So wouldn't hate to see a Mordekaiser, and it also counters like everything that these other top laners play, which is pretty fun. And Olaf getting a jungle buff to make up for the fact that his best top lane matchup is now ruined. Awesome stuff here. Early game Rise buffs, sure. Could see this coming out from Gruer. Silas buff is a jungle buff, so ignore what I said earlier. Maybe we'll see no one play it. Who knows? I don't think any of the other junglers would be picking that one up. Thresh buffs are pretty good. Again, one of Honen's signature champions. If we do see that flex come through, we've seen that come out from Andromeda a few times earlier in the season, but I think ultimately they've landed on Honen and ADC being the better option. But it's a best of 5. We could see anything happen here. I think. Yeah. Okay. So this is more of like a lane nerf for Zac. So again, the jungle not as affected as I would have thought. Baron appears to just do a shit ton more damage. So it's going to be harder. Wow. Okay. So Baron's going to be a lot harder to take. And if teams didn't read patch notes, they might not realize this. And even if they did read patch notes and just haven't played a lot on the patch, it's going to be tough to really know when you're going to be able to make these close Baron calls in the same way that you normally would. So I think that's going to be something to look out for sure. There's not as many like easy Baron calls. Staggering first Dragon and first Grubs is also pretty big here. And looks like they are more powerful. And you only need 4 Grubs to activate. That's pretty interesting. So 4 Grubs is the new threshold instead of 5. 6 stays the same. So that can definitely be something to look for. Top half of the map we're going to be very interested in. And yeah, I think these ARAM balance changes are awesome. And then bug fixes, here we do a little spectate. Well, there's something for spectate. And say we made it so spectator works. Would have preferred to see that. But anyway, we can just keep our fingers crossed on that front. I don't expect it to work. And this isn't just because I jinxed it last time and cast a curse myself. I've lost entire faith in Riot, so it's just not going to work. I have no confidence. But tune into the stream anyway, because worst thing that can happen is you get some of your time back. And I'll try to keep it as entertaining as possible, regardless. But I think that covers pretty much everything I want to go over for the series. Without a guest, I think there's a lot of back and forth loss, so it's hard for me to really keep the episode going all the way. So once again, as I mentioned before, I'll try to get some more podcast content going over the summer, some like Scrim Zone related game show type stuff, or some like IRL podcasting activities. We'll see what you can do. I feel bad about not getting too much stuff out, but have been neck deep in dealing with spectator stuff and trying to get these games re-recorded. It's been a lot, and trying my best to get you guys as much content as you deserve, especially those who do help us out with subs and stuff, even though we haven't been able to put out as much stuff. Really appreciate it. But yeah, we'll do like a special Victor based after this season for sure. Would love to do some takes on stuff going out through the season. But yeah, probably going to wrap this one up for now. And anyone who's watching who's on either Andromeda or Metabusters, I am hoping for a Game 5 personally, but wish everyone really good luck. And hopefully anyone else watching this that isn't on either of those teams is going to be tuned in and watching the series. But I'll see y'all in 30 minutes for the series.